billed as the biggest change to farming policy in half a century, and its aim is nothing if not ambitious: to cut direct subsidies for land use and pay instead for practices that are good for the environment and improve animal welfare. For the first time in decades, a British government can come up with its own policies now that we are out of the EU and out of the Common Agricultural Policy. Farmers, though, are worried. Joe Stanley runs a 750-acre lowland mixed and beef arable farm in Leicestershire.
We struggle to make a profit in the best of years. That's due to sort of global commodity prices and the high cost of producing sort of our really high quality food in this country, despite how cheap it is in the shops. It's the third cheapest food in the world, but because of the high standards, it has really high production costs. And for us as the farmer, to lose this really vital sort of safety net that farm subsidies provides means that the sort of our future potentially does look incredibly bleak.
Listening to that is the president of the National Farmers Union, the NFU, Minette. Morning to you.
Good morning, Nick.
How widespread is that concern that this won't just be a change in the way subsidies are given, it will actually put farmers out of business?
One of the challenges is that this is quite late in the day, 4.5 years since the referendum, a lot of talk about what public monies for public goods will actually mean. And here we are a month effectively from leaving the end of the transition period, and these radical changes taking place in 2021, the start of. So it's really farmers wanting to know the detail of the scheme, and that these monies that are being taken away from direct support, what does the scheme look like? How will they be coming back into farm businesses? That, I think, is the number one question. If the detail were there, I think farmers would be much happier, and I'm pleased that at least now this is the start.
Talking then about the principle, do you accept the point made by the Secretary of State in a big speech he's giving later today? We're going to hear from him, incidentally, at 10 to 8, that modern farming practices, and he is, of course, from a farming family, have often done grave damage to the environment.
Farmers follow the policy that governments set, and that is how it works. And I would refute that, because we've seen fantastic farming businesses across this country, some who are already delivering carbon neutral food. They are net zero. I want to look at the best businesses and learn the best practice and take things forward that way.
Sure, but you will know often that farming practices have reduced biodiversity, that slurry has polluted the water, that farms produce a lot of greenhouse gases. So without being critical of the farmers themselves, they are, as you say, following the practices that are encouraged on them. Is it now time to change?
We are changing. We are up for change. And that is just not a fair comment to throw at the farming sector. When I look at our standards compared to other standards, we have the most affordable food in the European Union. We've got to have a relationship whereby the environment and food production have this symbiotic relationship. You cannot do one without the other. And my absolute focus is making sure that we have profitable, thriving farming businesses that are producing climate-friendly food that ultimately can deliver what the public wants. We can do more for the environment, put more land aside because we're farming ever smarter. But this has got to be a symbiotic relationship. And there are too many conversations about either or. It's got to be done together. We've embraced the opportunity, but we need to see three things. We need to make sure there's commonality with 4 nations, 1 country. This is England only, don't forget. We also need to make sure that the supply chain is functioning fairly. No farmer wants to farm with support payments. They all want a fair return from the market. But you've seen a retail price war now that we live with, that is ongoing, that is ultimately putting everybody in the food supply chain at risk. And then finally, we do need to see the detail of these monies, that they are being redirected back to farming, because the points that Joe makes, this is 60 to 80% of farm business income. In many places, we do not want to see wholesale departure of farmers. So we have to get this right.
I hear you say it's unfair. It's, of course, the argument made by some farmers, including the author James Rebanks in his recent book, English Pastoral, which makes the case very powerfully. Let's just turn finally, though, if we could, to the question of Brexit and deal or no deal. There are very, very nervous farmers waiting to hear what will happen. Are you afraid that you may have farmers who are put out of business if there's no deal?
I've always said from day one, no deal is catastrophic. And indeed, others have said the same, Michael Gove included. We have to leave with a deal. I really hope it isn't a thin deal. A thin deal will have cost attached. but a no deal, be under no illusions, is disastrous for agriculture and consumers alike. We have to make sure that we get a deal.
Minette Batters, President of the NFU, thank you. We'll be talking to George Eustace at 10 to 8.